I'm super excited about today's topic. Obviously, you guys you have the capital disaster. I don't have one sitting around, but you've seen the capital disaster book that I wrote about capital projects. We created a course on managing capital projects. We called it CPM, very uh, cheeky name, right? Capital Project Management. But it is a great segue into managing capital projects. If you have not managed capital projects, or even if you have managed capital projects, it is a great tool for helping you be better at your craft. So our mission with these calls is to help pour into the engineers that we serve opportunity to grow within their organization. So we want to provide value in learning about topics that we are experts in and sharing that wisdom and knowledge with the engineers that we serve so that they can grow their influence in their organizations. We had a specific Zoom call where we talked about growing our influence in our organizations as engineers. That is our mission. Our mission is to help you grow and get better. And so that's why we want to continue to share this information. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to dive into this right now to talk about our initial discussion, and I need the team to confirm that we're going to be seeing the correct screen here. Are you seeing, which screen are you?
Looks good, Russ. That's your presentation view. Looks good.
Excellent. So that is the voice of Chris Mullins. We've got the entire CapEx team on the call today. So Chris is going to be my moderator and will chime in if I miss something, if there's anything to add, and he helps check the questions. So if there are any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat so that we can answer those for you. Definitely want to get that to be more of a dialogue than me just going on and on this specific topic. Like I mentioned, I'm very passionate about this topic. I started my career as a manufacturing engineer at Cummins Engine Company, and the first thing that I was asked to do was to manage a capital project. I was asked to purchase a wash system, and I had literally been at Cummins for 2 weeks just out of college. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even know what a wash system was, but I got put in that position, asked to provide that. And so I did, and I stumbled and fumbled and made all kinds of mistakes. It was late, it was over budget, all the things that you don't want to do as a project manager, but I learned a lot from it. Thankfully, Cummins had a great deal of grace and allowed me to continue working there despite the fact that it was not the best of projects. Now, the good thing is it washed parts, which is ultimately what we wanted to do, but getting there was the struggle. So I'm pretty passionate about capital projects, and since then, through CapEx and my time in selling and working with people through the capital management process, I've been involved in over 500 capital projects. So I've had a lot of experience, and I've seen some amazing project managers, and I've seen some crash and burn project managers. And so my goal and intent with this messaging is just to share with our audience some ideas and concepts that can help you be more successful in managing capital projects. And like I mentioned, grow your influence in your organization so that you have greater abundance as it relates to salary, and then also have an opportunity to move up in your organization to get additional responsibilities. I think that's part of living our full potential and doing everything that we can do to grow in our organizations and to help our organizations advance while also advancing our careers. That's the ultimate mission and the ultimate combination. When we can put those two together, growing our career and growing our organization, it feels very good, much more valuable than just focusing on ourselves. So again, this is our mission here, is to just pour into you. Let me first tell you what we do at CapEx Sales. We represent ATC Automation out of Cookeville, Tennessee. 85% of our business is with repeat customers, and if you've been involved in capital equipment at all, you know that that is a pretty tall order. So every year, year over year, 85% of the business that we do is our customers coming back to do more business with us. So that's an impressive number. A lot of dead soldiers out there for a lot of companies. I know one company that I've seen over the years, they're one and done. They put one system in and they're never asked back. So really proud of that, and ATC is proud of that reputation as well. Cincinnati Test Systems is the largest leak test company in the world. When I started working with them, I think sales were somewhere in the order of 16 million. But since then, they have grown, not because of me, because of their innovation and just their go-to-market strategy and their customer focus that they have. They have just blown up, and they are now the world's largest leak test company. So really proud of them, and great to be able to represent them. Duquesne Plastic Joining Systems, again, a global and diverse plastic joining company. They are the best in the business at what they do: ultrasonic welding, hot plate welding, vibration welding, you name plastic welding, plastic joining, they do it. Symmetric, we had them on last week where we talked about artificial intelligence. We talked about Industry 4.0 and where that was going. So Symmetric is a high-speed in-process data test and data management company. So if you need some analysis of data and to obviously use that data in making smart decisions for your business, that's what Symmetric brings to the table. And then Keller Technologies right here in Fort Mill, South Carolina. They are a comprehensive industrial air filtration solutions company. All right, that's the only commercial. Now, this first discussion about capital projects is an overview of what we're going to be talking about for the next 7 or 8 weeks. So the first part is defining capital projects. So the session that we're going to have next week is going to be about defining capital projects and getting clear on what the heck is a capital project, how do we justify it, and working through conceptually what is a capital project. So just breaking that down. Again, the mission here is 20 to 30 minutes on a call. I do tend to run over a little bit, so I apologize for that, but we'll try to get through this but again, encourage you to ask questions as we go. So again, this is a progression of what we're going to be talking about over the next few weeks, just some bite-sized information about that. So defining capital projects. What is important about defining capital projects? So it's capital investments that are made to increase revenue or cash flow. Revenue or cash flow. That is the only reason outside of safety concerns that your organization should or would make an investment in capital equipment. We talk about, as we get into this module, we'll talk about the fiduciary responsibility that management has to the investors in the organization. And what that means is they have to utilize the company's funds in the most efficient manner to maximize return. They want to maximize the return on investment. So if they could put their money somewhere else, then from a fiduciary responsibility perspective, the management's responsibility is to do that. Now, I used to always get frustrated when I was at Cummins and we would need something and I couldn't get approval for it. To me, it was a no-brainer. We've got to have this. We've got to have this. Well, there's a lot of gotta haves in a big organization. So what they have to do is work through all of those gotta haves and then decide which of those gotta haves are going to have the best return, the maximum impact for the business in the long-term strategy. Now, well, theoretically long-term. I know today we live in a quarter-to-quarter world because of companies that might be traded or owned by private equity. But as a general rule, the idea here for companies is to make sure that they're investing to increase revenue and cash flow. That's why we make capital project investments. So there are a couple different justification methods. We talk about those. We'll go into a little bit of depth next week about these, but return on investment percentage is one methodology that companies use. And then there's the cash back period, which is another strategy to determine what your return on investment will be for this particular capital project. So one of the things that's really important that we talk about, we'll go into more depth next week, is to not exaggerate or underestimate the numbers. So as I mentioned, management's responsibility is to make a fiduciary, or it's fiduciary, right? And they have to use the company's funds in the most efficient and effective manner. Well, if you don't provide them with numbers that are accurate because you really want this project to happen, that responsibility is on you. Now, ultimately, it's on them because they have to report to the board or someone else about why the capital that they invested is not returning the funds that we promised to the organization. But it's on us as project engineers when we are working through the justification process that we get those numbers accurate and we don't over exaggerate or even underestimate what the numbers are. So we've got to be clear and work really hard to be accurate in those numbers. So that's some of what we're going to talk about next week in defining capital projects. Now, the executive summary is a concept or an idea where we create a two-page summary, essentially, and that two-page summary is provided with the request for appropriations, or whatever your company calls it. Cummins, I think we call it an RFA, request for appropriation. So this two-page summary goes on top of the 18 or 30-page analysis that you've got as it relates to this project. It gets into the details about the risk for the projects. It creates the vision for the project. It talks about the specific skills that you're going to need, the team members that you're going to need. So it gets deep, but it's an overview of the project overall, so that the executives who struggle with time to read much of anything can quickly glance at the details for your project and have an understanding of what the risks are, what the projected return on investment is, and then they can, if they decide, they can further read the 30-page detail that is details out the summary, essentially. So that's the idea, that's the concept of the executive summary. This tool is an opportunity for project engineers and manufacturing engineers to differentiate themselves inside their organizations. Because if you want to grow, if you want to have greater responsibility, if you want to have greater income in your company, you need to differentiate yourself. That differentiation can come by providing detail and having communication. That's really the greatest differentiator for all engineers, for everyone in an organization, is their ability to work as a team member and to communicate to people above them and below them and around them. So it's really important that we master the art of communication. That's what the executive summary is. It's a tool to help you communicate with management. And it's also something that although you create it in the beginning of the project, you're going to update it on a regular basis. And it becomes a communication, a line of communication between you and your management. Because again, they're interested in the success of the project because they're laying out the capital. So you want to keep them informed as to what's going on, but you don't want to send long emails explaining it. You just update the executive summary, 2 pages, provide it to them, and that allows them some insight as to what's going on with the project. So I'll provide that detail for you next week. We've got a template that you can download and utilize if you want as well. Or not next week, but that's going to be in 2 weeks. So the executive summary ensures continuity and clarity. I mentioned that communication. That's what we want. We want to provide continuity and clarity. We want everyone in the organization to know what's going on with this project. So what often happens is the project gets kicked off and there's a lot of discussion in the beginning, but then no one knows what's going on in the interim. No one has an update from an organizational perspective. All of the energy and excitement that they had about making a $2,500,000, whatever the investment amount was, is gone. It dissipates. Then if you come back 6 months into the project and then communicate, hey, we've gone awry, we've got a real problem, then you are going to have a real problem as a manufacturing engineer or project engineer, because that's your responsibility. Had you communicated throughout the process the status of the project, there are no surprises 6 months down the road. We saw this coming. We knew that this product change was going to be a delay in the project or cause some problems with what we had already designed. The interface is going to be an issue. So we had to go back and rework it, and then that has caused a delay in the project, or maybe it's caused some cost overruns that we need to consider and be mindful of as well. So it's important, again, with an executive summary, that we're just regularly communicating. It's also a succinct tool for management, right? So it's succinct, it gets right to the point, provides all the necessary details for them to make informed decisions as it relates to the project and the business. It also helps facilitate approval. So we all know, if you're a manufacturing engineer and you've ever had to get a project approved, you know how painful it can be because one guy's in Europe, another is somewhere else, another is somewhere else, and getting them to approve a major project is a challenge. So if you provide a tool that helps them really be able to have the vision that you have for the project and summarizes it, it can help facilitate that approval process. It also fosters commitment and management accountability. So if you have got their approval in the beginning, but then disconnected until 6 months in and it goes awry, there's there's no culpability from a management perspective, right? Because you didn't inform them. They had no idea that it was going off the rails. So you are going to be 100% responsible. But if you're informing them along the way, saying, hey, 3 months in, I don't have the parts that I need. Month four, I still don't have the parts that I need. Month five, I still don't have the parts that I need. As opposed to getting to month six and saying, hey, I don't have the parts that I need, then it's on you because you haven't elevated it to the point where others are aware that can command more respect maybe than you, or have more of an opportunity to influence what's going on in the organization. So then I mentioned facilitates communication. And then it's evergreen. I mentioned we're going to do this every month. We're going to update it. Not a lot of time, just updating it. Here's what's going on. Here's the latest. Here's the latest risk. Here's where we are on the timeline. Keeping everyone in the loop. Your role as a project engineer, you've got to keep people in the loop. One of the things that's most often overlooked is building the ideal team. So if you are going to manage a capital project, you're going to have people that are going to have essentially dotted lines to you. So you're the project manager, but you're going to have a quality engineer. You're going to have a maintenance technician. You're going to have someone from an operator perspective, a representative from the operators. You're going to have representatives throughout your organization that don't report to you, but you're going to need their input and their help. So it's important that what you do is you step back and you look at this project and you think, who in the organization is best suited to help move this project forward, to help ensure the success of the project. I know it sounds goofy or out there, but if you want to succeed, and I know you do if you're going to manage a project, it's important that you find and identify the right people in your organization that can help ensure your success. The New England Patriots, they're going to struggle this year, but the idea that they've had from year after year is to put the best players for the positions on the field. That's every sports team. That is no different from a capital project management team. You want to put the best people in your organization on your team that you can get to help you ensure success. Now, it's a radical concept. People don't often have the opportunity to make that choice, but the way you control your destiny is by asking management, hey, here's the ideal person for this role that we have on this team, and here's why. So you can make some of the arguments for getting the people on the team with you. So, okay, CPMs need to lead and manage. That's what we do, right? We lead and manage the team. You're going to lead, manage suppliers. So you've got internal responsibilities. You've got external responsibilities. There's a lot of moving pieces to managing a capital project. Sometimes, whether it's large or small. I mean, the project that I did, I think it was $120,000 or something like that. So not a large project, but still a lot of moving pieces that go along with the project. So you want to determine the project roles, right? So you can't determine the team members that you want until you know the roles that need to be played in helping to ensure that this project is launched and managed successfully. So you got to determine the project roles. Quality engineer, you're the project engineer. Who's the program manager that you're going to need to have? Who's the supervisor over operations that you're going to need to be connected with? Who is in the maintenance group that you're going to need to be connected with? But controls engineer. So it just goes right on down the line as far as the responsibilities of people inside that can help you. So identify what those roles are before you even get started in defining, who the people would be to fill those roles for you. So you want to define those project roles. Again, we're going to talk about this in depth, so I don't want to belabor it right now, but so we're going to look for the ideal candidates to fill the roles, right? So we got clear on the roles that we need. We define those roles as it relates to this specific project, because depending on the project, the roles are going to vary. Sometimes the quality engineer might be heavily involved because it's such a quality dependent project, but other times there might not be a significant need for a lot of quality work, not a lot of heavy lifting as far as data analysis and evaluating, does this equipment meet specific requirements? So getting clear on those details for that project role is important, because you're going to determine the ideal candidate based on what you've defined. And then, like I mentioned earlier, you've got to ask for what you want. So if you identify these team members, you need to make the case. Say, hey, whoever the boss is, whoever your boss is, go to them and say, I've taken the time to define the roles. So here are the roles. They'll be so impressed that you did this, by the way. And then you said, these are the people in our organization that I've determined best fit these roles because of here's why, maybe a couple bullet points for each person. And then provide that as a guideline to say, these are the people that I would like to help me with this project, to bring this project home for the organization. They may or may not agree, but my point is you control your destiny in life, period, by asking for what you want. So you got to ask for what you want in that situation. And then what's cool about this too is because you define the project roles, everyone's going to know their role in the team because you have told them, you have communicated, you said, here's the project role as I've determined it for this particular project. So you lay that out for them, you share that with them, and then they're going to use that as their guideline for their involvement. All right, cruising on here, we're gonna go right through this one pretty quick. We've already gone through the ultimate project specification. We want to tell a story, right? We do that through the executive summary. We want to make sure we're telling a story about the project, creating the vision. Here is the vision of the so from an architectural perspective, they visualize it in their head, they draw it, and then it becomes reality. So you want to share that vision with your organization. We want to be clear on how your company's purchasing process works for your suppliers, right? You want to define that for them. You want to engage key team members in your company to help you get clear on those project specifications. You want to have lots of detail about what you expect from the supplier and what you expect the supplier to provide as it relates to the equipment and the details. And then provide all supplement specifications. We've talked about that. So we won't beat that one. We've gone into great detail during our I think 2 discussions ago about how to create the ultimate project specification. So this is choosing the who or the supplier. So the who is the person that's going to actually execute the capital project from an external perspective. So we want to clearly define the who for the what, right? So we've defined the what is the equipment. We've justified it. We've gotten clear on it. Now we need to match the who with the what. And too often what happens is we just go and we look for the best price. As an example, I've seen companies do this countless times in my 20+ year career in capital equipment sales. They'll go out there, they'll find the lowest cost, and even though they provided them with a specification, they get 3-page, 5-page, 7-page quote back where everyone else is providing an extremely detailed quote. They go for that low bidder and they get kicked in the tail every single time. Now, none of them tend to admit it, but that is such a common problem. So I want to encourage you to not focus on the price, but focus on what you want. What are the qualities of the supplier that you're looking for? So clearly define the who for the what. List the selection criteria. That's going to turn out to be something that you're going to use in determining who you will pick to help you bring this project home. You want to create a selection matrix with the selection criteria. You create a selection matrix, and you want to be clear on why you are allowing a supplier to quote. So some companies, they'll go out there, they'll find every Tom, Dick, and Harry to quote the project. They'll have 6 or 7 people doing the quote, and that is way too much work. If you are clear up front on what you're looking for, and you match to the best of your ability, the suppliers with those criteria that you're looking for, and then move forward only with them. If it's 3, great. If it's 2, great. If it's 4, you really don't need any more than 3 if you're intentional and you're very clear on the front end. So we want to be clear on why you as a customer are allowing a supplier to quote, and then provide all the details to the supplier. Be very detailed. Everything they need, all supplements, all drawings, every piece of content that they're going to need to provide you with an accurate quotation. And then don't compromise. I see this all too often. You'll set a due date as an example for a project, and you won't get any feedback, no questions, and then the day before you get bombarded by the supplier, and they're trying to get some questions answered, and then they ask for an extension, and then they're late. So that is at some level indicative of what you are going to experience when you are working with that supplier. Now, not all the time. Companies are busy. I get that. But that first part, that quoting process is some insight into how that organization functions when it is managing a project. So is it organized? Is it structured? Is it smart when it's working through the quoting process, or is it disjointed and asking the same questions multiple times and not really clearly articulating what you want or what you expected that you clearly told them that you wanted? If they're not doing that, don't compromise. The price is, if it's cheap, it's going to be cheap. So I say don't compromise because a lot of times the companies that are the most cost effective are the ones that are the total train wrecks during that quoting process. So don't compromise and begin the supplier evaluation from the first request. When you send out a request, how quickly did they respond to you? How quickly are they asking questions and engaging you or letting you know what their timeline is or informing you as to what to expect with their process, how it works, and how they're going to serve you. So the supplier selection process for you should begin from day one. How quickly, how much interest have they shown? Were they engaging? Because again, it's indicative of what they're going to be like when you're working through that process with them. So be very intentional in that selection process because it'll make or break. The supplier that you choose is going to make or break the project. All right, so your responsibility so speaking of making and breaking the project, so you as a project engineer, manufacturing engineer, capital project managers, they manage risk. That's what you do. So if you choose the wrong supplier, you're going to struggle with these two risks: the timing of the project and the budget of the project. Because the budget is often blown because people miss things, and so they insist on charging you for those. Now, if they missed them because the information was not provided by the customer, then that's on the customer because you can't quote what you don't know. But if the information was provided, but the level of detail provided in the quotation did not clarify what they were going to be providing, which is sometimes, I think, company strategies, then that gives them that wiggle room to say, oh, no, that's not what we said we were going to do, and come back, charge you more, and then delay the project as a result. Or oftentimes I'll see customers, they say, I need it in 16 weeks. And the company I work with, they'll say, we can't do it in less than 22, Russ. I mean, we've got to buy a Promus press, and that's an 18-week lead time. But yet someone says, oh, yeah, we'll hit that timing, knowing full well that they are not going to hit that timing. So make sure you're aligning yourself with suppliers that won't tell you what you want to hear and ultimately make you sad as a result of not meeting their promises. Okay, so each project phase is unique. We talk through that when we're talking about, this is essentially capital project management 101, the blocking and tackling, the boring stuff that after you have identified the project, you've identified your team, you've gotten clear on what your expectations are, you have selected a supplier, now the project management time begins. So this is blocking and tackling. Communication is king. You've got to be talking to your supplier every week. You've got to be talking to people internally every week about what you need from them. This is the lull in the project that if you don't stay on point, the project is going to go off the rails, and it's tough to get it back on the rails when everyone has become disengaged. So your responsibility, communicate. The best in this business that I've experienced, they are master communicators. They do not compromise that weekly conversation with the supplier. And then pop in your suppliers too. Pop in there and see if the project matches. I had a customer one time, the supplier kept telling them, oh yeah, we're good. And a week before the runoff, they show up and there's nothing except for a frame on the floor. So clearly they were just misleading them, but thankfully, well, not that it helped them much, but they showed up a week before the runoff, and then they had to camp out there and continually motivate the supplier to get the project across the finish line. So that's not what you want. Obviously, that's not what anybody wants. So use standard tools, project management tools, Excel spreadsheets. There are any number of different project management tools that are out there. So make sure just to use standard tools. Don't sense reinventing the wheel. And then establish that communication rhythm, like I mentioned, with consistent calls on a weekly basis, or or identifying that. So running through the tape. This is the last phase of the project. So you want to make sure you have successful runoff. You got to plan for it, right? You got to have a plan for the runoff. And for successful runoffs require everyone coming together, right? So you have to have your this is where the biggest disconnect is. Most of the time, your purchasing folks will not be willing to supply the parts necessary to properly run the equipment off. Not to throw purchasing under the bus, but that is the most common problem that we have, is that we are ready to run the equipment off, but we haven't had any components to debug, and there aren't any components. So we got to continually reuse what we've got, and it just creates quite a challenge for ensuring that we've got equipment that is ready to operate at an optimum level upon delivery. If you don't have proper debug, you're going to struggle, right? So successful runoffs require everyone coming together. We got to communicate the plan before, during, and after the runoff. So important that everyone understands the runoff expectations up front. Here's what we're going to check. Here's what's going to measure. Here's your responsibility. It's your responsibility. It's your responsibility. It's your responsibility. And you are a leader. If you are managing this project, you are a leader. You got to act like it. And that means you got to delegate and ask people and hold people accountable to doing the roles that they were signed up to do. And then during the project, you've got to come together every day, identify what happened today. Look at the charts. What did we see go wrong? What improvements do we need to make? How do we need to change this process, or change out this sensor, or make the equipment more efficient? So, and then after the runoff, you need to do a lessons learned, where you really understand, okay, this went well, this didn't go so well, so next in the future, this is what we're going to do to improve this process so that we can continue to get better. Most capital projects, they fall short of what they could be because people do not run through the tape. So runoffs require good parts. I'll beat that drum all day long. So hold the supplier accountable to agreement and the quote that they provided. And don't forget to prep for installation. You got to have your facility ready. One of the biggest mistakes that I made is we bought this washer, and when I had them deliver the washer, we ran it off, had them deliver it, but in my naivety or ignorance, I had not had the area prepped in our facility where the equipment was going to go. So there was equipment where the equipment was going to go. We needed a couple days to clear all that stuff out. So the machine, the wash system, sat on the dock. So the fork trucks that were loading up the trailers had to go around the wash system. And so you can imagine for 2 days I felt like about that tall, as my name was not real popular unless it was spoken in vain in the organization because of the trouble that it caused. So really important. So post runoff follow through is critical for the long-term success. Like I mentioned, you got to hold those suppliers accountable after you deliver, or after they deliver. As long as you have done your part by providing them the parts necessary to properly debug the equipment, you need their help. They need to be there. So choosing your suppliers that are going to back you up. Companies like ATC, they have an 85% return customer rate. In each year over year, it's not that 85%. So 85% of their business is with repeat customers because they follow through. They run through the tape. They follow up and help customers ensure that they have a successful project overall. All right. Any questions, Mr. Mullins?
Not at this time, Russ, but if there are any questions, feel free to email us directly or connect with us directly. We'll be happy to follow up and give you some more information.
Yeah, no doubt. Other than maybe a question is, how do you talk that long without coming up for air? I'm going to say. So, yeah,
Lots of practice.
Yeah, lots of practice. Thank you. You've experienced that, right? 10 years of working together for sure. All right, here's what we got coming up. So the next CapEx IndustryCast webinar is going to be about defining capital projects. We're going to get clear on that, the justification process, why capital projects, how they work, and get clear on that fiduciary responsibility. We'll talk a lot about that. And then we're going to do the executive summary. I'll provide you with some tools to help you create that executive summary. And then we're going to do building the ideal project team. And we're going to talk about what that looks like, how to go about defining and getting clear on those team members. Thank you as always. We cannot thank our customers enough for your business. We are blessed to have an opportunity to serve you. We do not take that for granted, and that's why we're trying to just do whatever we can do to provide you with some level of value to help you grow in your career. Please share this with other people that might benefit from learning it. It doesn't matter if they're in Virginia, North Carolina, or South Carolina. We want to help people grow. We want to help our profession and help people become better at their craft. So, any questions? Any way we can help you out? Mike Dorsey's down there in South Carolina. Chris Mullins is in Eastern North Carolina as well as Virginia. Adam Hooper, Western North Carolina, and then select upstate South Carolina accounts. So again, we are grateful. We appreciate the opportunity to serve you, and we look forward to talking with you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.